All right, this week, Rebecca Lavrenz, she's the Colorado bed and breakfast operator who probably most of you recognize her as being called the January 6th praying grandma. But she was sentenced to 6 months of home confinement and was fined $103,000 for entering the U.S. Capitol for about 10 minutes during the January 6th riot. Folks, this is the largest misdemeanor fine in American history. And it comes after prosecutors initially were seeking 10 months of incarceration, followed by 12 months of supervised release. Unbelievable. Well, joining me now is her attorney, John Pierce. He's the founder of the National Constitutional Law Union. John, welcome to Washington Watch. Thank you so much for coming on and filling in the details about this case.
Thank you so much, Jody, for having me on today.
All right, well, let's start by just briefly, can you describe what your client, Rebecca Lavrenz, what she actually did on January 6th?
Yeah, sure. It's very straightforward. She went to the Capitol to pray for the country. She's a great grandmother, bed and breakfast owner from Colorado. She saw what was happening to the country there in 2020 with the election and just the direction the country was going in. And she feels very strongly that, God is a part of this nation and the destiny of this nation. And she really, feels like and felt like we're on the wrong path when it comes to the country's relationship with God. So she wanted to go to D.C., to the Capitol, to pray for the country. And so that's what she did. She went there. She was always behind the barricades until they were opened up by the police, and protesters were let in through some of the bike fencing. And then when the doors were opened, and police let protesters into the building. And at all times, she was entirely peaceful. She was just literally just praying. She was inside for about 10 minutes. And then, came back outside and left. And, her thanks from the federal government for that was to be, prosecuted for these 4 misdemeanors and taken to trial in D.C. federal court.
So what are they saying about her? I mean, what I've said, she is considered to be a big threat to the country.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's ludicrous. I have dozens and dozens of these January 6 cases, and, it's not a surprise to me, unfortunately, that the Department of Justice is, falsely casting her as some kind of threat to the republic. Nothing could be further from the truth. She's a delightful great-grandmother who loves God, loves Jesus, and, she was just there to pray. And she wasn't there to get any election overturned. She was there to pray for everyone, for folks on both sides of the aisle, for people of all, creeds and races. And if Rebecca Lavrenz is a threat to the republic, then, someone's living in an alternate reality.
Yeah. So your reaction to this? I mean, this is the largest misdemeanor fine in American history. What's your reaction?
Yeah, that's what we believe at this point. I haven't seen anything bigger. Look, it's outrageous. I mean, obviously, we're happy that she didn't get sentenced to any jail time. We fought very hard for that. But, the notion that you can get fined $103,000 for essentially glorified trespassing for misdemeanors, it's really an affront to the Constitution. It's going to prevent her from being able to really pursue her appeals the way that, she needs to be able to, and the way we're planning to for her. So that's why we're trying to, continue to raise funds so that we can be able to pursue an appeal to the D.C. Circuit and then on to the Supreme Court as necessary. And you might have also seen that she has been prohibited from using the internet or email for that 6-month period. And that's really going to prevent her from exercising her First Amendment right to, speak about the upcoming election. It's going to, again, prevent her from the ability to really raise funds to, cover the fine and cover the appeal costs. And so that's why we're working very hard on that front on her behalf. But I've never heard anything like it in terms of the magnitude of this fine.
Yeah, I haven't either. I mean, it's just unbelievable. From what I understand, the judge in this case actually appeared personally to be angry at your client and said that the whole fine was basically intended to send a message. Is that accurate? Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, Judge Fruqui, who I have several cases in front of, and who I do have a great amount of respect for, he was definitely a little bit riled up during the sentencing. I think that these the system in D.C. Rebecca's a fighter, and so she wanted to take this case to trial. We fought very, very hard for her, some aspects of the system I think don't like when these January 6 defendants fight as hard as she fought. But it was definitely a tense sentencing, and the judge did have some tough things to say to her for sure.
Is this typical? What your client here has experienced in terms of being a pattern of the federal government prosecuting January 6 defendants more harshly than other rioters?
Oh yeah, there's absolutely no question that this is this is a perfect example of this two-tier system of justice that everyone is now finally talking about. You have all of these rioters back in the summer of 2020 in Portland and Minneapolis and everywhere else that caused billions of dollars of damages and many people dead and wounded. They essentially were not punished. They were charged in a much lighter fashion. A lot of those charges were dropped. Unfortunately, we're in a time where we have a very weaponized justice system, and January 6 is the perfect example of that.
So real quickly, what's next? The appeal takes place, and you're expecting, is this eventually going to go to the Supreme Court, you think?
I think it's got a real good chance because of the issues at play in this case, especially surrounding the First Amendment. But yeah, the next step is we'll go to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and we will appeal the conviction on the 4 misdemeanor counts, and we'll appeal the sentencing. And then depending on what happens there, if we need to, we will go absolutely to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think the key thing, and I think this is, the case with, all the—
Got to wrap it up here, John.
Yeah, I think, we got to get President Trump back there in office, and then, I'm optimistic he's going to pardon these folks.
John Pierce, National Constitutional Law Union, thank you so much. Incredible work you've done.